Hey, welcome to Expanded Knowledge. Today we're going to be looking at the Lue Elizondo Stephen Greer controversy, and I'm definitely not one to jump on, feuds or rivals between people, but this topic actually is, when we unpack it and get into the deeper implications of it, it's actually very significant to the whole UFO disclosure topic. So we're going to get into unpacking it today and connecting different dots to this whole thing, this whole narrative. So it'll be a good one. And I just want to say thank you to, if you're new to the channel, and been having some new people come over after I did the appearance on Ryan Sprague's show. And so, yeah, I'm really glad to see that you're enjoying the videos and that the information is useful for you. So let's get into it. So this is recently, all right, and I'll say this, right? Now, I do want to say this as a disclaimer really quickly, because, I have seen some comments where sometimes, I know we're all people at the end of the day, right? But we do have to kind of question people that are coming out as public figures for this issue. And I really do believe there's nothing wrong with questioning people. And Lue Elizondo says it himself in this interview, as we'll see. So I just want to say flat out, I have nothing personally against any of these people. And like Lue says himself, I don't know them personally, so I can't make a judgment. All I can do is be objective and look at the information and think critically about it, and make hypotheses based on the information, and draw conclusions where we can. So I don't want anything to get misconstrued as if I'm like against Lue Elizondo or against Stephen Greer or anything, because I'm honestly not. And I'll be clear where I'm sharing, opinion or hypothesis versus like fact or like valid conclusions, right? So having said that, let's get into it. And props to Patrick Bet Davis on the left there for asking this tough question and like kind of putting him on the spot with this. And I could understand how it would be uncomfortable, but look, this stuff needs to be looked at, and we'll get into why. So let us play this clip now, and then we'll comment afterwards.
Stephen Greer, what are your thoughts on Stephen Greer?
I don't know him. So I don't ever usually have an opinion on anybody. I never talk about anybody if I haven't had a chance to meet them personally.
So I had him on for the second time 2 months ago. And are you familiar with Sean Ryan, podcaster Sean Ryan? Mm-hmm. He had Greer on. Rob, can you pull up that one clip? Because this is the part where it's kind of like,
I think I'm aware of it. I know the one you're going to show.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. I want to show this one here too. I want to see what you're going to say about it. Go ahead.
When you're talking about these disinformation agents, these knocks, I have somebody that comes to mind, and we were talking about him at lunch. Lue Elizondo. Is he one of them?
Oh, of course. I mean, as soon as he emerged on the stage, I had a very senior guy at CIA who's worked this issue since 1979 contact me about that problem. But remember, the only way that you can control at this point all this coming out, because of what we have and what we're pushing forward through media, is to control the narrative, the spin. So the people coming forward who get an all-access pass on to, say, 60 Minutes or something like that, are people cleared by this same illegal, corrupt organization, because they'll tell the public, yes, the UAPs are real, but we don't know what they are. Well, this is an absolute lie. We absolutely know what they are. Some of them are ours, man.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. Just to be clear on what Stephen Greer's claim is, based on how he answered the question, he's implying that Lue Elizondo is a disinformation agent. That's his claim, and his reasons are because someone, a senior level person at the CIA who's been allegedly working the UFO issue since 1979, called him and told him, implied that that was true, that Lue was some sort of disinformation agent. So that's his claim. And then his other reasons are because whoever the powers that be that want to control the narrative of disclosure, assuming that that exists, that they will allow someone to come forward and be spotlighted if they stick to a kind of narrative of like, we have no idea what they are and they're definitely not human. So that's his claim. That's his argument. Again, I'm not presenting it to say that it's true or definitely true or something, but we should have it on the table. And now we're going to look at just how Lue responds to that and break that down a little bit now.
Stephen Greer, what do you...
Okay, here we go.
They are. Well, you know, I have 755 whistleblowers.
You have 755 whistleblowers?
Yeah. I mean, this archive is unbelievable.
You had mentioned that you...
What do you think about what he says? Because...
Well, where are the whistleblowers? And I'll tell you, isn't he the same guy they wrote an article about, if I'm not mistaken, who apparently was accused of taking people on a tour and then paying some dude to pay, like $500 to drop flares out of a Cessna? Is that the same guy?
I don't know that.
I think there was an article. We can. I think it was done by the Debrief, I think. Anyways, you know, my mom always told me if I have nothing kind to say, don't say it at all. So I've never met the man, but you know, it's nonsense. I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, look, where the whistle.
All right, so let's break down Lue's response there, and I'm going to be a little critical of Lue here in his response. And again, that's nothing against him. And actually, as I was playing the following clip, he says some things that I really agree with afterwards. So actually, I'm going to start us off by looking at this here. Now, I actually teach a college course about logic, philosophy, and logic, argumentative logic. And one of the fallacies is the ad hominem fallacy. And as you can see here, the ad hominem fallacy is when is an attack on the person rather than directly addressing the person's reasons or claims. So in this case, Stephen Greer, Patrick Davis showed the clip where Stephen Greer is saying that he believes that Lue's a disinformation agent because someone at high up at the CIA told him that, and because he's saying that we don't know what they are and that they're not human. That's his argument, his claims, his reasons. And rather than Lue responding to that, he resorts right away to the ad hominem fallacy, right? He went right for, isn't that the guy that like tried to make fake UFOs, make people pay for it, right? And so I have to say a better response would have been to respond to the claims, right? Why would this prominent UFO researcher who's worked with a lot of high-level people inside the military and the government, which is a fact, and we'll clarify that in a little bit with some details. Why is he saying on the public air that someone from the CIA told him that? Address that, and not to say that again, like that Greer's be right, but address that. Now, we're all human, and we can fall prey to that, to like just going for the ad hominem fallacy, right? Oh, you said that about me, then I'm going to just attack you. We see that in like the presidential debates, right? Personal attacks. And so I understand that. Now, on the same token, Lue was a counterintelligence officer. And just for the hell of it, when I was getting ready to make this video, I went on ChatGPT and was just like, would a counterintelligence agent be trained to use like the ad hominem fallacy? And the AI did seem to say that would be a tactic. Not saying that he did that, okay? But here's what it does do. The average person will hear that, and I think this is what the average person does tend to do about Stephen Greer, is to just kind of throw everything out the window because of something he said, or because people said that he did some fake UFO thing. and then you just discredit his claim. So let's try not to do the ad hominem fallacy. All right, what's the claim? And whether you hate Stephen Greer, love Stephen Greer, love Lue Elizondo, hates Lue Elizondo, let's just look at the facts and come to conclusions, like Lue says himself, which we're going to get.
They are. Well, I have.
Let's check it out.
I had him on twice. And I listened to, by the way, I don't know if you watched the documentary he did about the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951.
No, I don't watch his material.
Okay. In your world, who is Stephen Greer or types like him in your world, in the military? How do folks look at someone like Stephen Greer?
We don't deal with him. ATIP was only focused on military encounters. And so, as a civilian, I'd never met him. I don't know much about him. And, I've never worked with the guy. I'm aware of his feelings towards me. He's certainly entitled to whatever feelings he wants, but proof is in the pudding. We got videos released. We've got Congress involved. We've got an Arrow now, an organization that's been established. We've got whistleblowers coming out. I don't know what to tell you. The people are free in this country to do what they want, listen to who they want. It is a free country. And I encourage people to get all sides of the narrative.
So I'll say, to Lue's credit there, I think it's great for him to say, listen to whoever you want, get all sides of the narrative, right? That's great to hear him saying that. But I'm also going to push back on something he said from what the facts and the data, as he calls it, as we'll see in the next clip, shows, because he's saying that they, as someone that was on ATIP and working in the Pentagon on the UFO issue, that they would never engage with a civilian UFO researcher, right? He says, like he said there, we only deal with military encounters and military, cases. But that doesn't really add up with other information. For example, James Lukatsky, and I'll put the book up on the screen here, and you may already know about James Lukatsky. He was the director of OSAP, which OSAP was what came before ATIP. And James Lukatsky, you even hear Lue Elizondo in some of his interviews in his tour right now, saying, Lukatsky called him into his office, and it was Lukatsky who got him involved in ATIP. Lukatsky wrote this book last year, Inside the U.S. Government Covert UFO Program. And this is also confirmed in the Kona Blue documents that came out about OSAP, and which makes me want to push back on Lue a little bit here when he's asked about, Patrick asks him, who's Stephen Greer to you, right? And he says it's nothing because we don't look at civilian data. However, in James Lukatsky's book and in the Kona Blue documents, it's very clear that OSAP, the precursor to ATIP or whatever, the closely related to ATIP, they absolutely looked at civilian data. They worked with MUFON, and they were planning in the Kona Blue documents to have civilian researchers, UFO researchers, be part of the team. It was on the proposal for the program. So as far as I could see, according to that information, these Pentagon, Department of Defense, UAP, UFO study programs absolutely take in civilian data. And that was further confirmed in my last video, what Sarah Gam said when she said that they look at YouTube videos. So I would have to very much question Lue there. And if you want to talk about the quality of Stephen Greer's data, well, he compiled a bunch of high-level military people's testimony. It's a pretty simple project what he did. He just met with all these people, videotaped them, and then transcribed their testimony on the videotape into his book. We'll get to that later. So it's not a matter of him being just like a fringe kind of crank out there UFO conspiracy theorist. He actually did a lot for this issue, which we're going to get into, actually. So let's come back now and let's go to the next clip here.
I had him on
Don't be so quick to give up your ability to think. And that's my concern. By the way, this is not directed towards you. This is my argument when people ask me my opinion. You know, as tempting as it is to tell you my opinion, of course I have an opinion. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, does it? What matters is what does the facts say? And then follow the facts, follow the data. That's how you get to a conclusion.
For the last
Totally agree, Lou. And again, respect and credit to telling people that. Absolutely. And that's what we're trying to do here. That's the only reason that I make this channel, is to share my analysis of data, right, about this topic, this fascinating topic. So on that note, let's move forward here a little bit, because now we're going to build on that, where he left us there and what we've.
Don't be so quick.
Sorry. All right. And now I apologize, because these are like notes to remind me about what I want to talk about. So you don't need to look at these or read these or whatever. But you can if you want to, but I'm just going to use them to remind me right now. So here's what I think about this whole exchange. First of all, I think there are misconceptions about Stephen Greer. And for someone like Lou, in the position he's in right now, I think he should be informed about Greer's work. Like you heard him say in the interview there, like, I don't watch his material. I don't read his material. I've never looked at his material. For someone who's genuinely like taking this seriously, and I don't care, honestly, if you were like a military person working on a very specific military project, like you're out now, you're the face right now of disclosure. I think you could find the time to read, or at least know, like the witnesses that Stephen Greer had in his disclosure project / has in his disclosure project. So especially because, and as I'll show you in a minute, all of his witnesses, almost all of them are military, you know? So I don't know if you've checked out Stephen Greer's work. I understand his personality can be off-putting to many. But the fact is, you know, he gathered all these witnesses that were real, credible military people and put it into a book. And they were saying what they knew about UFOs. This was back in 2001. And, you know, you can get this book for free. You can read it on Internet Archive. And just take a look at, we'll just like spin through some of the people here, so you can get a bird's eye view. You know, military, scientists, even some astronauts, and even some familiar names like Hal Puthoff. There's James Fox, right? Nick Pope. All these familiar names. There's Puthoff. And on it goes. All right, those are the contributors, and then we can see some of the witnesses. Okay, military. Dr. Richard Haynes, who's like one of the most legitimate, respected UFO researchers ever. Navy, Army, all these people. Okay, nuclear facilities, all of these people who were officers or directly involved decided to go give their testimony to Stephen Greer in the Disclosure Project. And if I had been running ATIP, if I had been running OSAP, hell, I certainly would have read what these people said. And whichever of them are still alive, which many of them were when OSAP and ATIP was in progress, and many of them still are alive, but a lot of them are dead. You know, you heard Elizondo say, where are the whistleblowers? You know, they're in the books. I mean, they're there in the books, and the videos are even out on YouTube. So they're there, you know. And if I was running these programs, of course, I would be like, oh, this guy said that he literally like saw a UFO come up and like shut down a nuclear facility. He's still alive. Like, let me go talk to this guy. Like, let me try to figure out what the hell's been going on this whole time. But for Lou to say like, I don't read his material, I don't watch his material, I never heard of any of it. I don't know. It's just like, it seems like that doesn't really make sense to me. And I'm just going to show you, like, one of the best examples from Stephen Greer's book is, like, and this plays into a lot of the modern UFO stuff in different ways. So this is Dr. Edgar Mitchell. He was the 5th astronaut to walk on the moon. I know some people think we didn't really go to the moon. I guess anything's possible, but okay, assuming that happened, moonwalking Apollo astronaut. And he worked closely with Stephen Greer. So, and he said, yes, there's been ET visitations. Yes, there's been crash retrievals. And I'm going to skip down here to this part, okay? Because then this is where it's like Greer's narrative takes it that step further, where, like, there's not only a cover up about, like, UFOs and aliens, but there's a cover up that, like, there's, like, this secret human group that's, like, kind of part of the government and the military, but it's kind of like their own thing, and they're, like, doing all this crazy who knows what with this technology. And that's what Edgar Mitchell said, Edgar Mitchell. And here it is. There's been a certain amount of reverse engineering that has allowed some of these craft or some components to be duplicated. And there are Earthlings who are utilizing some of this equipment in certain ways. Perhaps a large part of this activity that's classified as UFO activity, abductions, and this whole type of activity may well not be due to ET activity. If any is due to ET activity, it is rather a small part, and a larger portion is due to human type activity, Earthling type activity in a very clandestine manner. And that was astronaut moonwalking Apollo astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell in 2000. Now, if you've heard of the Eric Wilson and the Thomas Davis notes, well, bear in mind that it was Stephen Greer who went with astronaut Edgar Mitchell to meet with Admiral Wilson, and they showed them all their information and documents, and that's what made Admiral Wilson go knock on some doors where he, according to the Eric Wilson Davis notes, he was told, you don't have a need to know. He pried further and then apparently told Eric Davis that what he saw was, not made by human hands, something like that. That's all starting from Greer's effort. Okay. And, there's even more. What made this whole modern UFO issue kind of begin in a modern sense, right? Most people studying this topic talk about the 2017 New York Times article. Yes, 2017, Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal, New York Times, and that was the effort of the To the Stars Academy. Tom DeLonge, the Blink-182 guitarist, Lue Elizondo, Chris Mellon, some other people as well, getting those videos out, working with with Leslie Kean in the New York Times, and putting that information out in the New York Times. That began this kind of a landmark moment in 2017, and now it's kind of progressed up into 2024 and where we are now. But you may not know is that Leslie Kean, in a book by Paula Harris. Okay, I'm going to actually try to get you the book right now on the screen here. Bear with me a moment right here, because just in case you want to check it out for yourself. Paula Harris, UFO. Yeah, so there it is. This is the book. All right. Connecting the Dots by Paula Harris. She's like a longtime UFO journalist. And this book's very simple. It's a bunch of interviews with people, like almost everyone who like made a name in the UFO world. And she has an interview with Leslie Kean in this book. And yes, Leslie Kean was the journalist that broke the 2017 New York Times article. And in Paula Harris's book, she says the reason she got interested in the UFO subject and started taking it seriously was because of Stephen Greer's 2001 disclosure conference, which basically after his book where he gathered all those witnesses, they made a public presentation in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club, and these people spoke. Many of them spoke and told their testimony and said, we're willing to testify before Congress right now. And this was pretty huge for the time, and basically the media ridiculed it. And then, 9/11 happened, and this just was not an issue. So obviously I hope I've shown you a little bit of how, Stephen Greer's work, while people might not like him for one reason or another, his work, it's not debatable. Like, his work has been seminal in moving the UFO issue forward. And you could even argue that we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for his work, because, like I said, quoted in Paula Harris Burke, Leslie Kean, who broke the 2017 article, says that this disclosure project is what opened her eyes to go, wait, what? There's something really going on here. Plus all the other stuff. And even if you're not going to subscribe to that argument, I mean, he has 2 books just jam-packed full of people saying what they experienced and what they know. And this goes all over the place. Lue talks a lot about interference with our nuclear facilities. And the most well-known case, right, the Malmstrom incident, which was brought up at the 2022 hearing in Congress, Salas, he went to Greer. He was in Greer's book. I mean, that's how we got to know this guy. Now he's public. He talks on podcasts, still alive. But that's just my point here, is it's easy to write off Stephen Greer and say oh, he fakes UFO things. And even for example, and this is probably a good example, and I love this channel and I definitely recommend it. It's the Christian Harloff channel called Down to Earth. I'm going to share it on the screen now. And I enjoy watching his videos. He actually has a very kind of even-minded, critical thinking approach to the subject. But he's relatively new, and he says that as well. I mean, like many of us are, it's only been maybe a year or two. And when I heard him talking about this Elizondo and Greer issue, he kind of wrote off Greer and saying he's the guy that says Star Trek is real. And I think, that's part of the perception. That's part of the issue here, is he's not just some random dude who says Star Trek is real, which, by the way, he's never said that. And when he's been asked about the the secret space program claims, the people that claim 20 and back and all that, he says that he doesn't believe that. Greer said that. So, and he's never said Star Trek is real or anything like that. He just goes further, like he said in those clips we played at the beginning. He just goes further and says, we know that there's man-made UFOs and that's being covered up too, and that they could try to pass off and distract, to that they're just aliens and there's no human-made ones that's doing who knows what with, which makes people incredulous, because it's what, we figured out this technology and that's been kept secret. That's Greer's argument. That's his thesis. And a lot of other people, like we saw there, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, actually were saying the same thing. So my point is I don't think that we should just write it off. And there's even more connections here. Actually, there's even more. And the time here always goes by faster. I wish I could just pack everything in tighter, but all right. So actually our discussion now takes us into Tom DeLonge. Yeah. Because Tom DeLonge is actually really important to this whole understanding how we got to where we are today, the players involved, and what's going on. So first, I'm just going to play you this clip. This is on the Joe Rogan podcast. This was back in 2017. This was right before the New York Times article came out, or like right around that time. So let's take a listen.
Consciousness of the Cold War.
And why has this guy decided to meet with you?
Consciousness of the Cold War.
And why has this guy decided to meet with you at an airport?
Because the only way you meet with these people, the only way you ever would have anyone talk to you is if you can provide a service that they need.
Mhm.
And my service was pretty interesting to them because I said, look, you guys, you know, you struggle with saying disclosure. You want to tell everybody everything, which I don't think everyone should know everything. And then you say they can't handle it, so don't tell them anything, you know. And I'm like, there's a middle road there, and here's the way I would do the middle road, and it resonated with them.
So yeah, I think that clip is like a key piece of audio that actually really could be a very important piece of testimony in trying to put together this whole puzzle about what's going on. And is there some kind of agenda? Is there maybe like a limited disclosure agenda, which I usually hint at in my videos, which is like a hypothesis that I think is a very serious one that's on the table as far as I'm concerned. And here is Tom DeLonge, right? Now, real quick story, Tom DeLonge's story as he tells it on Joe Rogan and as he tells it on the Steve-O podcast, which you can listen to both of those. He says he was just kind of poking around. He said he wrote a book and then he wanted to go get approval from like people in the Pentagon because he didn't want to like say anything that would get him in trouble. And then people started talking to him. And then he was kind of brought into like this, as he calls it, like this inner circle of people who are read in and in the UFO program. These were people from Lockheed Skunk Works, Air Force generals. And this eventually led him to Lue Elizondo and Christopher Mellon. And that's who became to the stars. That's where we're going next, actually, with the slides. You know, yeah, people don't really talk about DeLonge that much. But these were the guys that were, as he said in the Rogan interview there, he had a service for them, right? And so we can think of that in the greater context and what that might mean. Now, he says his service it was a way for them to communicate with the public, which is interesting because DeLonge wrote a book and then he's kind of like fallen off the map. Like, it hasn't really been much too active. But what's even more important than that is that in that Joe Rogan interview that we listened to, what's the thing that he says that's super interesting and significant about this whole limited disclosure idea? He says that when he started talking to these people, right, that they were either saying, shit, we got to tell everybody everything, like they can't handle it. And then the other side was saying, you can't tell them anything. And DeLonge claims that he was the one advising them and saying, hey, look, you don't have to tell them everything. And then he says it to Rogan, I don't think we should tell people everything. We should tell them something in the middle, right? That sounds a lot like a limited disclosure to me. And so that's pretty significant if, you know, Tom is telling his story to Joe Rogan and, you know, that's who he was talking to, were people in this circle, if not, you know, directly referring to Mellon and Elizondo. So I don't know. But I do think that's significant. Now, that leads us to another thing here, and that's Danny Sheehan. And this is going to be the last kind of dot that we're connecting here. Now, Danny Sheehan is like the leading kind of legal attorney force behind the UFO disclosure movement in the 2023 UAP disclosure bill that the Senate passed unanimously. And the 2024, that was up now. But in the 2023, they listed a civilian group that would be involved in the disclosure process. That was Danny Sheehan's group, which had a different name in the bill. But it was Danny Sheehan's group, the New Paradigm Institute. And so I just showed you all that stuff about Stephen Greer. I tried to like highlight why his witnesses and his work, aside from what he is like, and maybe you like him or don't like him, his work is very significant and should be everyone in the government working on this issue should have his books, you know, just to see what people who were inside the government and the military said all those years, and to investigate it further, right? But Sheehan, who's a Harvard-trained lawyer, he was involved in a bunch of these very real, like big scale cases, like the Pentagon Papers, the Iran-Contra scandal. He was involved in all that as a lawyer. So he has a legitimate background, and he represented the Disclosure Project for 20 years. So that tells you, more credibility about the Disclosure Project. And when Lue Elizondo started coming out, he approached Sheehan to be his lawyer, and Sheehan agreed. And then eventually Greer didn't like that, and Sheehan stopped representing the Disclosure Project. Greer didn't want him to anymore. I'll let Sheehan tell the story actually here in this clip.
I told Stephen, as soon as Lue had approached me to ask me to be his attorney, I knew that there was some difference in view between what Lue was saying and what the Disclosure Project was saying. And so I told Stephen about it, and that I was intending to represent Lue. And Stephen and I had a long conversation about it. We agreed to not agree with me representing Lue, but I went ahead to represent Lue. And then there came a point in time when Stephen thought that the activities that he was attributing to Lue, which I didn't believe to be accurate, caused him to want me to not represent Lue at all if I were going to continue to represent the Disclosure Project. And so that was the last conversation he and I had about it.
Okay, I'm gonna just play one more clip from later, and then we'll talk about it for a minute.
I've talked to Stephen since then. I went to the press conference that he had in June of 2023, where he presented I guess 3 or 4 different people from the military who had encounters of one kind or another with the phenomenon. We're perfectly cordial. I like Stephen. I think Stephen likes me. And so the people keep asking these kind of trailer park questions about, have you been arguing with your friend or not? I mean, I don't view that as very constructive.
Okay, so they disagreed about Elizondo, and he no longer represented the Disclosure Project. But the part I found significant there is when he said him and Greer had a long conversation about it. So what is there to really talk about? Like, if it was just Greer being like not liking Elizondo, or like just having a meltdown or something, let's say, and just accusing him with no reason, there's not much to talk about, I would think. So what were the details? Why did Greer really think that these activities that they didn't agree about, that Elizondo was involved in, what's the long discussion about? And I think it says something that Sheehan, as a leading figure in this whole issue right now, like he said at the end there, he's got nothing against Greer. They're cordial. He respects the work he did, so forth. He represented him for 20 years. Now, I do want to say that I do think it's possible, absolutely, that Stephen Greer just accusing him without any reason. That's certainly possible. The reason I say that is because when I've looked closer at some of the information that Greer has put out, it is sometimes inaccurate. Now, it is often accurate when I double check and fact check it. But I've found instances like when he's cut off quotes from senators. I'm speaking specifically about the Daniel Inouye quote, if you're curious enough to look it up at yourself. And he cut it off to make it have a very different meaning than what Inouye was saying. Now, Inouye was obviously very much interested in investigating the UFO issue. He was the one that, with Senator Reid, approved the OSAP program. So, but my point is this, right? What did, and this is like the bigger picture here, right?
I've talked
and I bring up the unreliability of Greer, in my view, just to present you a balanced conclusion here. Bearing that in mind, right? This guy, like I've shown in this video, 30 plus years, he's been trying to be like an activist for this movement, this UFO disclosure movement, whatever you want to call it. He gathered all the witnesses, right? Like he said, 750, hundreds of those are in his books and in the video interviews. As I understand it, some of those 750 are still confidential. But according to Greer, he's given those to Congress, according to him. And so somebody who's been that, and we know he's been at ground zero on the UFO cover-up. We know it. I mean, you're not going to get a meeting with Admiral Wilson and Edgar Mitchell in the Pentagon about UFOs if you're not, very close to the inner workings of this issue in the government. So we have to conclude that Greer is close with people who are close to this issue more than more than most people in the world that are public figures, all right, and certainly more than us. So what he says, while we shouldn't just take it as truth, we should take it as a claim that is coming from someone who knows people, and not just dismiss it because someone wrote an article online speculating that Greer faked UFOs at one of his conferences, or because we are made to think that like he's saying Star Trek is real or something. Like, look up the work of Greer. I mean, forget about him. Like I keep saying, just look at like what all those witnesses said. It's pretty interesting. And these are colonels, majors, captains, generals, scientists, FAA controllers, all this kind of stuff, astronauts. And so I think that in concluding here, we've connected the dots, right? Sheehan, Elizondo, DeLonge, right? Remember what DeLonge said. The inner circle he was meeting with said he was telling them, you guys shouldn't tell them everything, but you also shouldn't tell them nothing. You should tell them something in the middle. And that's kind of what Greer is saying in the Sean Ryan interview. They're basically saying the same thing. So it's something to keep in mind. And again, I'll end this video by saying, I'm not trying to come out here to like make people think like Lue Elizondo's lying. He's a disinformation agent, like Lue says himself. We all have a right to just be objective, question things, look at the data, right? As I've said, there's some things I disagree with, like him saying that he would have never looked at any civilian UFO research in his position at ATIP. Meanwhile, at OSAP and the UAP task force, we know for a fact, according to its director and an employee there, that they did look at civilian UFO data. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I'm going to sit back and just see like where this goes. And what I would love to happen, and I'll actually end in this conclusion here, is like, this is what I think, right? If Lue is really about getting to the bottom of the truth and having this open dialogue, like for the people and everything, then he should be willing to like sit down with Stephen Greer, one of these podcasts out there that has them both on separately, and let's just have a discussion. Like that would be great, or work together. You don't even need to be public, like meet, you know what I'm saying? Like Stephen Greer, like Lue, you should be willing to meet with him. Like it's not about him. It's about, have you read his book? Have you seen the films? Like he hasn't. His whole argument is based on all of these testimonies of these real high-level military and government people. So like, I think Lue, should be interested, right? He should be interested in seeing Greer's material. And on the other side, if Greer is really about, you know, disclosure and people coming together and all that, then he should be willing to talk to Lue Elizondo and come to an understanding. And that's what I think about it. So there's missing pieces to this all making sense. And I think for me, the biggest connection that is going to leave me kind of pondering as I put this back on the shelf is like what DeLonge said, and the possibility that I'm hypothesizing now and then, which is like, is Lue doing what he thinks is best for people, part of a plan to let people know, yes, there's a reality to this, but we don't know what it is, and it's non-human, when, you know, there may be a lot more going on. And I think that we have to push for that. Otherwise, could be indefinitely, could be 100 more years, 80 more years of us living in the Matrix, right? As David Grush himself said in his interview with Jeremy Corbell, when he was saying why he came with his whistleblower claims. So that's what I got for us today. I think I'll leave it at that, and appreciate you. Let me know if you have any thoughts, and thank you again for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care.